Imagine you're trying to coordinate a massive nationwide road trip.
Oh boy.
Right. I'm talking about mapping a route across all 48 contiguous U.S. states.
That's a lot of driving.
It is. Now, imagine you have to execute this whole logistical marathon, but not with a highly organized team,
Yeah.
not even with your closest friends.
Okay, who am I doing it with then?
Hundreds of complete strangers, people you have only ever interacted with through internet forum usernames.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds like a total nightmare.
And the cargo. You aren't securely transporting like a durable, weather-sealed lockbox or something. You are passing along a highly fragile 1-pound piece of balsa wood and vinyl.
Just a pound. That is nothing.
Literally nothing. And the ultimate kicker here, no shipping allowed. It has to be hand-delivered.
Every single step.
Every single step of the way, state by state, for years.
You know, when you lay out the mechanics of it like that, the sheer number of potential failure points is just staggering.
Oh, totally.
It is practically a masterclass in how to design a project that is destined to collapse under its own weight.
Right. Any sane project manager would take one look at those constraints and just walk away.
Absolutely.
But someone actually pulled this off. So today, in our deep dive, we are extracting the insights from this fascinating piece of internet and hobbyist history.
Yeah, the Wings Across America project.
Exactly. The Wikipedia article documenting Wings Across America 2008, also known as WAA-008. Our mission here is to dissect exactly how a 16-ounce model airplane survived this cross-country odyssey.
Driven entirely by hobbyists.
Driven by the passion, the friction, and just the sheer stubborn coordination of this niche community.
It really serves as an incredibly rare case study. I mean, we are looking at an era where digital communities were just beginning to, truly test their capacity for sustained physical world organization.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how this seemingly impossible logistical chain didn't just immediately snap, we have to look at the architect behind it. Who actually sits down and decides to mobilize the internet for a multi-year relay race?
Well, the architect was a guy named Frank Geisler. He was a United States Air Force veteran operating out of Gloucester, Virginia.
Okay, so he had a military background. That helps with logistics.
It definitely does. And he was already a contest director for the Academy of Model Aeronautics, the AMA.
Ah, so he knew the community.
Exactly. He had deep roots there. So in early 2008, he was batting around this grand idea with some friends. He wanted a nationwide network of pilots linked by a single aircraft.
That's ambitious.
Very. And the concept generated so much electricity among his local peers that he decided to take it to the broader community.
Did he pitch it to the AMA directly?
No, he actually bypassed traditional organizational channels. He went straight to the grassroots level.
Oh.
Yeah, internet forums and direct emails to AMA chartered clubs.
Let's contextualize 2008 for a second here. Because if you think about your own digital footprint back then, we aren't dealing with modern algorithms.
Oh, not at all. No social media feeds optimizing for geolocation.
Right. We are talking about old school threaded message boards, things like vBulletin or PHPBB. Finding people meant actively hunting through subforums.
Which makes the initial traction even more remarkable, honestly.
How fast did it catch on?
Within just 5 weeks of floating the idea online, Geisler had successfully recruited 230 pilots.
In 5 weeks.
5 weeks. And those pilots represented every single one of the 48 continental United States.
5 weeks to build a continental map of volunteers using 2008 form mechanics is just incredibly impressive.
It is a testament to the community, for sure.
But this is where I have to bring up the non-negotiable rule of Wings Across America 2008, because this is what turns a fun community project into an absolute high-wire act.
The shipping rule.
Yes. The plane could never be shipped by mail, ever.
That single constraint shifted the entire endeavor from, a casual hobbyist stunt into an exercise in extreme physical reliance.
I mean, it's like an Olympic torch relay, but organized entirely by internet avatars in 2008.
That's a great way to put it.
And I really have to push back on the reality of this. Think about how hard it is to get 4 of your best friends to agree on a time and place for dinner.
Oh, someone is always going to slake. Always.
Exactly. So how does a project relying on hundreds of internet strangers avoid completely falling apart when it demands they show up in person?
It's a huge ask.
We're talking about taking time out of a Tuesday afternoon to drive to a field and meet a guy whose forum handle is probably AeroDude99.
Right, yeah.
How did this actually work without some centralized, automated routing system?
What's fascinating here is that this project represents a massive scale translation of digital trust into physical world cooperation.
Digital trust. I like that.
Yeah, because the automated routing system you're looking for, it just didn't exist.
So how did they do it?
The logistics were handled entirely manually by Frank Geisler. He essentially became the human air traffic controller for a continent.
Wait, manually routing an object across the entire country?
Completely manually. He would personally email the pilots to establish the schedule.
You have got to be kidding me.
Nope. So the current custodian of the plane would meet the new pilot. They would fly the plane at their local field to prove the chain.
Like a proof of life kind of thing.
Exactly, proof of flight. And then the new pilot became responsible for driving it to the next handoff.
That is so much pressure.
It is. And to maintain this unbroken chain, the statistics reveal that over 12,000 emails were generated just to support the coordination.
Okay, wait, let me stop you right there. 12,000 emails.
Yeah, 12,000.
The source says there were ultimately around 800 pilots involved. That is an average of 15 emails per person just to hand off a toy airplane.
It sounds like a lot.
Why so much friction? I mean, that sounds less like a well-oiled machine and more like desperate behind-the-scenes scrambling.
Well, the friction is kind of the point. You have to factor in the reality of the physical world intersecting with hobbyist schedules.
Like what? People having day jobs?
Day jobs, cars breaking down, kids getting sick. But most importantly, in aviation, even model aviation, you have weather.
Oh, of course. Weather.
Yeah. If a storm front moves into the Midwest, a scheduled handoff in Ohio gets delayed by a week.
And that knocks everything else out of whack.
Exactly. That
What the
delay
hell?
cascades, which means Geisler then has to email the next 5 people in line over in Indiana, Illinois, just to adjust their schedules.
Ah, okay. So it's a constant rolling recalculation of human availability.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And add to those 12,000 emails, the 4,500 posts on online forums used to publicly coordinate and document the handoffs.
Wow. 4,000 posts.
If one person simply didn't show up, the chain broke.
No pressure.
Right. But the digital bond they had formed over a shared, highly specific passion, it actually translated into real-world reliability.
Because they didn't want to let the forum down.
Exactly. The accountability wasn't to some faceless corporation. It was to the community watching eagerly on the forums.
You know, you'd think that human unreliability would be the biggest risk to the whole operation.
You would think so.
But when you look at the physical reality of the journey, the real miracle wasn't the people. It was the physical baton itself.
The plane.
Yes, the plane. Because when you realize what this plane was actually made of, you understand why those 12,000 emails were probably filled with so much panic.
The vessel is definitely where the engineering reality clashes with the logistical ambition.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because they didn't choose some ruggedized titanium drone for this multi-year cross-country abuse.
Oh, far from it.
They chose a model called the Squirt. SQUIRT, and that stands for Simple, Quiet, Robust Trainer.
Which is a very specific classification in the RC hobby.
Let's look at the specs for a second. It had a 38-inch wingspan. It weighed exactly 16 ounces.
1 pound.
Just 1 pound. And it was constructed out of balsa wood and covered in vinyl film. Balsa wood. You can snap balsa wood between 2 fingers. This is essentially the weight and structural integrity of a large kite.
Yet it was chosen deliberately.
Yeah.
The community actually rallied around this specific airframe.
Really? Why this one?
Well, Bill Stevens of Stevens Aero Models in Colorado, he stepped up and donated the Squirt kit.
That's generous.
And Horizon Hobby stepped in too. They donated their newest piece of technology at the time, the Spectrum DX6i radio system.
Okay, so the electronics were solid.
Right. They wanted to ensure the control link was rock solid.
I get that they had top-tier gear donated. That makes sense. But I'm still hung up on the materials.
The balsa wood?
Balsa wood and vinyl. We are talking about 5 years of continuous handoffs between hundreds of different pilots.
And they didn't all have the same experience level.
Exactly. These pilots do not all have the same skill level. Some of them are inevitably going to misjudge a landing and put this thing straight into the dirt.
Oh, absolutely. Crashes happen.
So how does a 1-pound balsa plane survive that kind of continuous abuse without being completely destroyed?
To understand that, you really have to look at the underlying design philosophy of a trainer aircraft.
Okay.
It is built to be accessible and forgiving, sure, but most crucially, It is infinitely repairable.
Repairable, like you can just glue it back together.
Exactly. Balsa wood is effectively the Lego of the aviation world.
I love that. The Lego of aviation.
Think about it. If you crash a complex, modern carbon fiber aircraft, you might need specialized epoxy curing times or, expensive factory replacement parts.
You're grounding the plane for weeks.
Right. But if you crack a balsa wood fuselage on a rough landing, you don't need an engineering degree.
What do you need?
You need a bottle of thin cyanoacrylate glue, super glue, and about 5 minutes on the tailgate of your truck, and you are right back in the air.
So it's basically the ultimate right to repair vehicle. The fragility is actually its survival mechanism.
In a way, yes. And that resilience through repairability, it was mandatory. Because the environmental extremes this airframe was subjected to were just punishing.
Oh, the extremes listed in the source are wild. Let's talk about the temperature swings for a second.
They are extreme.
The coldest environment the Squirt was flown in was 0 degrees Fahrenheit. That was by a pilot named Richard up in Butte, Montana. 0 degrees.
And flying in 0 degrees isn't just uncomfortable for the pilot standing in the snow. It is fundamentally hostile to the equipment.
Because of the batteries.
The batteries and the airframe itself. The cold causes the vinyl covering to shrink and become incredibly brittle. It can turn a minor scrape into a massive tear.
Oh, wow.
And then, you have the battery chemistry. It degrades rapidly in freezing temperatures. The voltage sags, meaning the motor produces a fraction of its normal power.
So you have a brittle plane that barely has the power to keep itself in the air.
Pretty much.
And then on the absolute opposite end of the spectrum, the highest temperature recorded during a flight was 107 degrees.
107.
Flown by Mike in Valley Mills, Texas. I mean, imagine a tiny electric motor sealed inside a balsa wood box baking in a 107-degree Texas sun.
In those temperatures, you face the exact opposite problem. The vinyl covering actually expands and sags, which alters the aerodynamic profile of the wing.
So it literally changes shape in the heat.
Yes. And that electric motor is entirely dependent on ambient air for cooling. At 107 degrees, you are pushing the thermal limits of the magnets and the wiring inside that motor.
And it's not just temperature that tried to rip this plane out of the sky either. The source notes it reached an altitude of 8,500 feet in Dillon, Colorado.
That is a critical detail. It really highlights the aerodynamic stress.
Because the air is thinner.
Exactly. At 8,500 feet, you are dealing with a significantly higher density altitude. The air is physically thinner.
So how does that affect a tiny plane?
Well, for a plane that relies on a specific airspeed to generate lift over its wings, thin air means you have to fly way faster just to keep from falling out of the sky.
But the plane only weighs 16 ounces.
Right, so you are demanding maximum output from the motor in an environment where the propeller actually has less air to bite into.
It is a miracle the powertrain didn't just disintegrate.
Honestly, it is.
Although the original motor didn't make it the whole way, did it?
It didn't, though. The original GWS P400 motor eventually had to be replaced. But it survived an astonishing 215 flights before being swapped out.
215 flights for a mass-produced brushed motor pulling a plane through Montana freezes, Texas heat waves, and thin mountain air.
It's an incredible testament to the hardware.
It really is. But I have a theory about this.
Let's hear it.
I think if they had used a military-grade, indestructible foam drone, people wouldn't have cared as much.
Oh, interesting. Why?
The fact that it was a fragile balsa wood plane meant every single pilot had to handle it with extreme reverence. The physical vulnerability of the object actually demanded a higher level of care.
And that care fostered deeper trust among the community. That is a really profound way to look at it. The vulnerability of the physical object became the bonding agent for the human network.
Yeah.
And when you transition from looking at the engineering of the plane to the demographics of the network that protected it, the scope of this project shifts.
It becomes something bigger.
It shifts from a logistical curiosity into something deeply cultural.
Let's dive into those demographics and the sheer scale of the timeline. Because this was not a quick summer sprint.
Not at all.
The maiden flight took place on May 24, 2008. It didn't cross the finish line back in Eastern Virginia until years later. What was the exact official duration?
The log time for the complete journey was 5 years, 145 days, 21 hours and 50 minutes.
5.5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, think about your own life over a 5.5 year span. People graduate college, they change careers, they move across the country.
Entire chapters of life.
Right. And through all of that life happening in the background, this single, unbroken chain of hobbyists kept passing this balsa wood plane along.
And the distance covered definitely reflects that timeline. The official statistics log the journey at 26,587 miles,
Wow.
visiting 230 AMA chartered clubs. However, the source material also notes an estimation at one point that the plane covered over 30,000 miles.
Whether it's 26,000 or 30,000 miles, you are essentially circumnavigating the globe
By driving.
by driving, zigzagging across 48 states.
And doing it through the hands of 812 different pilots.
And that number, 812, is where we see the true accessibility of this community. The age range of the participants spans nearly an entire century.
This is hands down my favorite detail in the entire deep dive. The youngest pilot to take the sticks was a 6-year-old boy named Evan Holman.
6 years old.
And the youngest female pilot was 8-year-old Nicole Hansen. And then you pan all the way to the other end of the spectrum. The oldest male pilot was a 97-year-old man named Bill Bailey.
Bill Bailey. 97 years old. And the oldest female pilots were in their late 60s.
Consider the mechanisms of that participation, too. You have a 97-year-old man in 2008 interfacing with an internet-born project.
Right. He had to get the emails somehow.
Exactly. He likely had assistance from younger club members to coordinate the logistics, which perfectly illustrates the cross-generational cooperation this project required.
And the geographic variance is just as extreme. California, logically, had the highest concentration with 29 registered pilots.
Makes sense. Big state, lots of people.
But states like Delaware and Vermont had exactly 1 registered pilot each.
Oh, man. The pressure on those solo pilots is immense.
Right. Imagine being that one guy in Vermont. The entire 5-year multi-state chain converges entirely onto your shoulders.
You cannot mess it up.
You have to drive out, meet someone from a neighboring state, ensure you don't snap the balsa wood fuselage in a crosswind, and then safely transport it to the next border.
Because if you fail, the entire national project stalls in your local park.
It's terrifying.
Conversely, you have areas of incredible density. The Hampton Roads RC Club boasted the highest concentration, with 53 participants organized by a single coordinator.
53 in one club.
Yeah, and this density led to logistical feats of its own. On August 31st, 2013, the squirt plane was flown an incredible 69 times in a single day.
69 flights in one day.
Just back to back.
The logistics behind just managing the batteries for that are dizzying. You would need a continuous flight line, constantly swapping battery packs, passing the DX6i transmitter down a literal line of pilots from dawn until dusk.
It's incredible.
So what does this all mean? When you step back and synthesize the 5 years, the 800 pilots, the 0-degree weather, and the age gap from 6 to 97, it feels like this tiny aircraft ceased to be just a plane.
What did it become?
It became a traveling community notebook. It was quietly gathering the fingerprints, the local weather, and the specific dedication of vastly different people across the continent.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to circle back to Frank Geisler's foundational goal.
To promote the hobby.
Exactly. This was never meant to just be an endurance stunt. The stated mission was to promote model aviation. And the demographics we just discussed prove unequivocally that he succeeded.
They really do.
It demonstrated that a 6-year-old and a 97-year-old can stand shoulder to shoulder on a flight line, look up at the same sky, and share the exact same physical experience.
It proves that passion, when properly channeled, has an undeniable gravity to it. You don't need a $1 million corporate ad campaign or a proprietary app to build a movement.
You just need people who care.
And today, the Wings Across America 2008 project is officially in the history books. That exact squirt plane, the identical piece of balsa and vinyl that froze in Montana, baked in Texas, and gasped for air in Colorado, it is permanently retired.
A well-deserved retirement.
It sits on display right now at the National Model Aviation Museum.
And resting right alongside it are Frank Geisler's personal records. 205 pages of meticulously kept notes documenting the entire adventure.
205 pages of manual routing. A physical manifestation of making sure an internet promise was kept in the real world.
It's a beautiful thing.
For anyone listening to this, whether you're managing a corporate team, building a startup, or just trying to organize a neighborhood block party, there is a core lesson here.
Yep.
Epic coordination doesn't require flawless automated software. It requires a shared goal, an acceptable level of friction, and a community willing to actually show up when it is their turn to carry the weight.
This raises an important question.
Oh, lay it on us.
We look back at 2008 as an era where the boundary between our digital presence and our physical reality was much more rigidly defined.
Definitely.
Today, we are infinitely more connected,
Yeah.
yet perhaps more isolated in the real world. Think about the online networks you participate in every day.
Okay.
If the servers went down tomorrow and you were forced to translate those digital interactions into a physical relay, if you had to hand-deliver a fragile, vulnerable object across the country, relying exclusively on the people in your group chats or forums, what modern communities would genuinely have the trust, the patience, and the profound dedication to keep the chain unbroken?
Would the people in your timeline actually show up in a freezing park on a Tuesday afternoon to take the handoff? It's a heavy, revealing thought to leave you with, but an absolute triumph of a story to look back on. Until next time, keep digging into those deep dives.